안녕하세요. My name is Jonathon. I'm the COO and co-founder of the company CloudMoolah. We are based in Singapore, a very small company. And before I pass over the mic to my colleague, Mei Ling, I would like to give you guys a quick introduction on what we do. So our company started off from 15 years of publishing games in Southeast Asia. We were the licensee of big titles like FIFA Online 2, like StarCraft 2. We were the partners of Blizzard, partners of EA, partners of Take-Two. So we were doing a lot of game publishing. So eventually, when mobile games take over the world, as a lot of you might know, we decide to do something different. We decide to offer a complete suite of services to game developers from all over the world. And that is the very reason we have built CloudMoolah. So, without further ado, I shall pass over the mic to Mei Ling. I shall rejoin later on if you have questions for us. And let's give a round of applause for Mei Ling.
Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. I'm Mei Lin, and I'm the BD manager for CloudMoolah. So today, I would like to share with you guys the 10 mistakes that developers usually made when they're in Southeast Asia. But before that, I would like to give you guys a brief insight on what is the market of Southeast Asia. So as you can see here, there's a bit of typo. The one beneath North America is supposed to be South America. I apologize for that. So you can see that Asia Pacific actually takes up 47% of the overall gaming market throughout the entire world. And you can see that they've generated over 51.2 billion worth of revenue. And it is projected that game revenue in Southeast Asia will grow from 1.1 billion in 2017 to 2.4 billion by 2021. Okay, so you can see that Asia is actually a very big market, but then you have to understand that Southeast Asia is also part of this market, and it is also very important. So why is it important? So as you can see, Southeast Asia actually consists of 11 countries that has around 641 million total population. And out of this population, we have 330 million people who are active internet users. So out of these 330 million people, 90% of them are actually active internet users, and 170.6 million of them are actually mobile gamers. So the year-of-year growth is around 60.7%, and the average annual spend per paying gamer is $69.53. Okay, so basically now you'll be thinking, so you've read reports about Southeast Asia market. The number is not that high, and also probably if you publish your game in Southeast Asia, you would ask yourself, how come I publish my game there, but I don't achieve this amount of result? So probably you might have made a few mistakes here and there, and so I'm here to pinpoint it out and also probably to help you to publish your game better in Southeast Asia in the future. So the first mistakes that most of the developers made will be wrong content, wrong fit. So what do I mean by wrong content, wrong fit is that you have to understand that Southeast Asia is a very multicultural country. So basically everything the users select is based on their cultural background. Like I select a game because I have affinity with it. And this is, for example, in Southeast Asia countries like Vietnam and also Singapore and Malaysia, if you were to publish games that has Chinese cultural background in them, probably this game will fare better. As you can see in App Annie as well, the results are shown there. Why is it so? Because all these countries, they share the same cultural background as the China developers in China. So that's why China games usually do better in Southeast Asia, because they have the same taste, you can say that. So To help you guys to identify which content work and which content don't work in Southeast Asia, you can actually try a free zero-cost marketing or zero-cost publishing in Southeast Asia. And to do that, of course, you'll go to Google App Store and also Play Store, the mainstream store, right? But there's actually also an option where you can go to third-party platforms as well, because that's where most of the users pay. And usually they don't cost much as well. Okay. So the next one will be localizing without understanding. So what do I mean by localizing without understanding? I, as a publisher, I know that I always tell developer, hey, if you want to come into Southeast Asia, you need to first localize your game. But in fact, it's not actually always the case. Localization is a must. It's not a must, but it's a plus. What do I mean by that? Because you have to understand that localizing your game in Southeast Asia can be very expensive, because we are talking about at least 5 languages. I'm going to list them out: English, simplified Chinese, Thai, Vietnamese, Bahasa Indonesia, and some of you might want to go to make Bahasa Malaysia and also maybe Tagalog as well, which we usually don't do. So if you were to localize each and every language like that, it can be very costly. So what we usually tell the developer is that we have to look at your game genre first. If your game genre does not require a storyline to play the game, then if it's a casual game, you might not need to localize it. You can just use English as an universal language, because as long as users understand how to play your game, that's the most important thing. And one more thing you have to know about Southeast Asia user is that they don't read. They practically just press all the buttons to get through the game. So if you have too many words, they won't read. And you're going to waste your money to localize all the game and everything. Okay. So the next one will be localization actually goes beyond translating only the language. It's more on translating the graphics and also the gameplay. So I'm not telling you to localize the entire game to make it fit into the market. At least provide certain events that fit the local taste. For example, we have a lot of different festive seasons in Malaysia or in Thailand. So you can create certain events that actually match with these festive seasons. And yeah, they will feel that, okay, the developer cares about me, so I will spend more time playing this game. So a quality localized content will reflect on how much you care about your users. So it's really important for the developer to show that he or she cares. But also make sure that your translation is quality lah. Don't make it like, it sounds very weird, it's from Google Translate and the user don't really understand, so that also defeats the purpose. The third point that most of the developer made is that they only focus on credit card payments. Because most of the developer, they don't understand that Southeast Asia works very differently. Like, out of 10 person, I can say that around 3 of them has credit cards. So it's safe to say that credit card penetration is kind of low in Southeast Asia. So I'm sure in Korea, most of you have your own credit card. But in Southeast Asia, it's very different. Like, not all of them have credit card, especially gamers, because they are youngsters that don't have the capability to apply for a credit card. So how do you cater for this type of players? Okay, so these are the 3 types of payments that most of the users in Southeast Asia would prefer, which is direct e-banking, mobile top-up cards, and prepaid cards. Why is this type of payment so popular, you will ask? Because one thing is, as a student, I cannot ask my mom to buy a game for me, right? So what I can do is I can use my allowance money. I go over to the nearest convenience store and I buy a top-up card. Then I can play my game. So it's much more less burden for the users to use this form of payment method instead of using credit card. So you might want to tap into this form of payment as well if you go into Southeast Asia in the future. And yes, in Southeast Asia, if you ask most of the publishers, they will tell you that, oh, most of my game revenue comes from third-party payment and not credit card. So you might want to have a think about this as well. The 4th mistake that most of the developers will do would be they will spend a lot of money on marketing because they think that marketing is the way to go to market your game on. Well, marketing is important, but it can be costly and complicated in Southeast Asia. I believe most of the developers, they will tell you that marketing is actually very, very complicated for me because I specialize in making game, but I don't know how my user target behavior is. So what we usually do is that In order for you to achieve 3 ways for effective marketing in Southeast Asia, it's best for you to prepare different marketing budget for different territories, because the CPA and CPI for different regions is different. Means that certain country, they will be much more expensive, certain country will be much more cheaper. So it's important to know that your content is suited for which country, then you spend more marketing budget on those country, instead of like, you equalize them, where you spend equal marketing budget on every single continent, and then you might fail in certain one, and it might hurt a lot. So it's best for you to think twice before you spend that amount of marketing budget. And also, the safest way would be to run your marketing campaign with local partners. When I mention local partners, I'm talking about third-party payment partners, because they are the one that controls all the users in Southeast Asia. If you go to them, your product will definitely reach users. And also, the most important thing is run both online and offline marketing, which I'm sure all of you are familiar with. Okay, the next one. Okay, this might seems a bit tricky for all of you, because it's about being unaware of local regulations and taxations. So regulation is very, very complicated in Southeast Asia, because you're dealing with 11 different countries that have different regulations and different taxes. So to understand each and every country's regulation, I can say that it'll take you around 6 months, and even to implement it, it'll take also around 6 months. So I have my own experience with regulation in Southeast Asia. So what we do is that, as John mentioned just now, we are the publisher for Southeast Asia. So most probably we would want to tap into the Vietnamese market, because it's a really huge market. So what happened was that it took us 6 months to apply for the game license, and after that, the publishing license. It doesn't make sense, right? Because if you go through the 2 mainstream platforms, you don't have to apply for any license. But in fact, in Vietnam, it takes a lot of these regulations and stuff to actually bring down your integration process and everything. So it's really important for you to understand the regulation of the countries. And the next complicated thing would be the taxes. There is VAT, there is withholding tax. So if you were to go into this market yourself, and you to go one by one, you'll have like headache, you know, because you have to deal with every single country yourself. So why not go the easy way, where you get a local publisher who are familiar with all these to help you. So you just worry about your game, and you let the publisher worry about the regulations and also the taxes. Okay, the next one would be not taking care of your community. I'm not sure if you guys are close to your community or not, but in Southeast Asia, community actually is very important. It can be considered as your game asset, because the community can make or break your game. Okay, so what can you do to actually build up your community? So one of the most important things would be you have to create at least a mobile game portal, so that people knows about your game, can get information about your game, and then also to build a source of affinity with your game, familiarity with your game. They want to know what you're doing with your game. The next one you can do would be you build and own your own mobile game community. So about this point, I come across something really interesting, where I've actually talked to a local game developers. He has his game was quite a hit in Southeast Asia, and I will say the game name, I guess it shouldn't be a problem, Post-Night. So he told us that he did not build his own community. His community built their own community. So basically, the community create a forum page for the game, they talk about it, they even analyze the game mechanism and also the reward system in order to pinpoint like when is the right time to get the best reward for their loot box and something like that. So community is really important, because it creates hype for your game. So the advantages of having a game community would be these 3. So first of all, they manage the social element of the game for you. You don't have to worry about it. The second point would be they will be more likely to provide constructive feedback to your game, because they like your game. They want you to improve. They will give you a suggestion on what you can do to make your game better, and also especially in Southeast Asia. You're dealing with people in so many different cultures. It's best to know what people from different cultures think about your game, so you can actually build to fit their taste. And of course, it's free word of mouth marketing for you guys. So I'm sure you guys, if you're a gamer, you'll know that when you play a game, it's because your friend asks you to play a game. Or you want to play a game, you ask your friend to play with you. So basically, that's how the community grows. So community is really important. The 7th point is not being sensitive to culture and political content. Okay. Again, I'm going to bring the word culture back into the scene. So because Southeast Asia is a multicultural, multiracial country, they are very sensitive and particular in any topics that's related to religion or politics. So I'm going to go straight into a case study so that you can have a greater view of what I'm going to say. So I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with a game called Fight of God. The game was first published in Steam in Malaysia, but a few days later, Steam was banned by the Malaysia's MCMC. This is a huge thing. Imagine Steam got banned. As a player, what would you think? Like you pay money to Steam and then Steam got banned. So what happened was that Steam approached the government and asked what's the problem, and then they mentioned that Fight of God, the content was deemed inappropriate for people in Southeast in Malaysia. So the only way for them to lift the ban would be to remove the game. So Steam has no choice but to remove the game. So if you guys are unfamiliar with Fight of God, the reason why it was banned was because there are like a lot of God depiction inside, like God heroes and all that. So all these are actually very sensitive issue because in Malaysia, I'm from Malaysia, so I'm going to use Malaysia as an example. So Malaysia is a multiracial country that has 3 different races. So things like this can easily trigger religious issues. So we usually tend to avoid contents like this. And also what we usually, okay, and for the political content, this is also my own experience. So what happened was that I wanted to publish this game in Vietnam. Okay, so it's a tank battle sort of game. So it's usual that you have like, to make things much more interesting or spicy, what developer will do is that they put flags of different country and make it like a country versus country type of battle and stuff like that. So the local publisher, because we work with a local publisher, he came to me and told me that, hey, could you change the flag into something else? And then they're like, the government probably would not let this go because it will entice like war thoughts and stuff like that. I'm like, okay, so, all right. So in the end, it takes a lot of communication between the developer and also the publisher to actually make things work. So what happened was that we just removed the flag. So we don't have to like show it out and get too much issue about it. So you really have to think about the religious and political aspect of it. But it's understandable that because we don't share the same religion probably, and also the political standpoint of view. So it's great for you to go to a local publisher if you have questions about this. The 8th point would be opting for the slow integration process. Okay, so what do I mean by slow integration process would be? We're talking about integration for 11 different countries. So it's like you have to prepare 11 different type of payment availability for different users because 11 countries. So what you need to do for the entire process, first of all, I'm sure most of you know if you've worked with a publisher, you have to like first contact the local payment merchant, and then the agreement comes in, and then you have to learn about the integration, and then you integrate, you test, you repeat, and all these things takes around 3 to 6 months. Imagine you have to do this for every single country, and then you do it one by one. You will take around like 2 years, and imagine by then your game would have like lost the shine it's supposed to have, and also maybe other developers has already bring in something similar like your game. So you're sort of like backtrack in that sense. So what's the best way would be? Find a publisher that has all these payment integrated so that you just have to integrate the SDK and you're ready to go. So this kind of process actually only takes like maybe 1 week, possibly. Instead of you going through one by one, do everything, and then you might not get the best rate because you don't have the connection. So why not get a local developer to do it? So the 9th mistake that most of the developer would do would be not considering the technology landscape. Okay, this is probably because I'm talking about developers that are usually from the Western regions and also probably in Korea itself because you guys have better internet, better technology and stuff, right? So what happens is that in Southeast Asia, it's a different story. In Southeast Asia, Android wins. Okay, so basically, if you really want your game to do well, and you don't want to spend too much time on like 2 different SDK, so maybe I would suggest Android, like do the APK well, okay? Because Android is much more, compared to iOS, Android would be much more cheaper probably. And also the content-wise, the store-wise, they have more content that's much more accessible. And also, internet and file size matters. Because I'm from Southeast Asia, and then of course I have 4G, but then I'm a bit stingy about it. So usually, I won't download the game unless I have Wi-Fi. So here are some of the developers' do's and don'ts for your file sizes, for your game file sizes, and also the internet usage in Southeast Asia. So first of all, you have to keep your file size as minimal as possible if you want them to download instantaneously, especially if you have like on-ground event, you want them to download your game and try it. Make your file size as small as possible so that they don't feel the pain when they download the game, you know. And also provide game patches, small game patches for game updates. Means that you don't put all your game updates in one patch. Separate them into several patches so that when they download, it's like when they play it and then they get interested in it and then they'll start patching, and then it's small step, yes, but it's definitely much more efficient if you give them everything one shot. And the developers don't would be, never ask your user to re-download your game, because to be honest, there's so much game on the store now. So if you want the user to re-download your game, most probably they'll be like, okay, why not I just take this opportunity to try a new game. And internet is considered precious for C users. They're usually stingy in its usage, like me. So usually, if I go to an on-ground event, they ask me to download the game, I'll be like, can I use your Wi-Fi? I don't want to use my own data. So you have to be careful about all these things. And last but not least, some of you think that Southeast Asia is an easy market. I can go in myself. All I need to do is integrate with the local payments and then find a local marketing guy to help me and everything. It's actually not that. It's actually much bigger than that because, like, I'm going to bring the word in again, culture is involved. So there are 2 types of publishing methods usually we can see in C. One is the exclusive publishing and one is the non-exclusive publishing. But there's pros and cons, of course, so you have to consider which one you're much more comfortable with when you're publishing in C. So exclusive publishing, the advantages would be the local publisher settles everything for you. But keep in mind, you have no say about your game most of the time. The publisher will ask you to do this for them, do that for them, and you have to oblige because you want to get the revenue share from them. As for non-exclusive publishing, developers usually have full control over their content, and they can maximize the revenue they obtain. And also, of course, you can get a la carte publishing services. And the next question would be, okay, so now I know about all these mistakes, so what is my next step? This is where we come in. Let me introduce to you CloudMoolah's comprehensive publishing solution. So, the most important thing that you'll need in Southeast Asia would be the CloudMoolah payment solution. So this payment solution is very different from those payment solutions you see outside because we've integrated with all the third-party payment partners into one single SDK. So all you need to do is you target your build in Unity Editor to target IAP CloudMoolah, and then you're ready to explore all the different payment channels that we have. So let me give you an insight of the partners we're working with. Okay, so as you can see, Thailand, we're working with True, we're working with AIS, BluePay, we're working with KodaPay, and also in Vietnam, we're working with VTC, we're working with Viettel, and Taiwan, we're working with SoftWorld. Malaysia, we're working with MOL, and also upcoming, we're discussing with MOL Pay about this. And also Singapore, we also have MOL Pay, MOL. And Indonesia, we have Unipin. And upcoming, we're going to have Gudang Voucher inside as well. All these are third-party payments that are doing very well in its respective countries. Imagine you have to go through each and every one of them yourself. Why not just come to us? Because we already have all these in our SDK. So you're expecting 6 markets for your game. and access points that's over 500,000, and also 100 million gamers. We're talking about this amount of gamers who are paying gamers. Okay, so it's not only about the payment. We also have publishing services. So we do localization, we do marketing and advertising, we also do financial and regulation consultation, local customer service, publishing consultation, and also investments. These are the few things that most of the developer might miss out, because localization, like you say, is important, but local customer support is also important, because you want to know your users' feedback towards your game, but what if you don't speak the same language as them? Or what if they don't speak the same language as you? So you want to transfer your message to them, but it will be difficult. That's why local customer support is also very important. And the next big thing that's coming up for CloudMoolah is nonetheless the Moo Store. This will be released at the third quarter of 2018, where we're working with Unity and we're developing it. So this store focuses on third-party payment, meaning that other than the usual credit card payment, we also have the scratch card payment, the telco payment inside, and also the online banking inside. So basically everything is inside. And yeah, it supports both premium games and also free-to-play games. Okay, so I'm sure you guys received the code, right? Is that a yes or a no? Yes? Okay. So if we're giving out a free Moo token in conjunction to our ICO. So all you need to do is you scan this QR code. There will be a questionnaire inside where you fill in your details and you fill in your codes, and we will send the Moo token to you after that. All right. So I'm just going to leave this page here until you guys are done. Okay, so if you guys missed out on this, you can come to our booth later. We are right in front here. So if you have any question, you can come to us as well. So if everyone is done, we're going to do a Q&A session. I still see phone. Oh, there's a question. Yes. Oh, translation.
네.
I'm not sure. Okay. Yes. Oh,
네,
sorry.
그래서 지금까지 해주신 얘기가 동남아 시장의 이제 문제점들이 문화적인 뭐 센시티비티도 있고 다이버시티도 있고 그다음에 규제 같은 것도 뭐 여러 가지 문제가 있는데 이제 클라우드 물라에서 그거를 해결해 줄 수 있는 서비스가 있다는 거잖아요. 근데 그 이전에 이제 아주 처음에 얘기하셨던 것 같은데 애시당초 그 동남아 시장에 진입을 해야 하는 이유가 사람들한테 많이 있을까 싶은 의문이 있는데, 아까 게임 시장 사이즈를 보여주셨을 때 50% 정도로 써 있었던 것 같은데, 이제 동남아 시장의 시장 규모만 봤을 때는 1%였던 것 같거든요. 제가 봤던 그 숫자에서는.
Okay. Is that your question? Okay. So basically, why I think Southeast Asia is a market worth entering is because, based on our studies, we noticed that, as you can see previously, I've shared the slide with you. Hang on, I have to go back up. Okay. So we're looking at 100 million gamers for this market. So these are the gamers who are hardcore gamers who are willing to pay for a game. And you might see that there are also bigger markets out there, but they're not necessarily paying markets. And they're not necessarily hardcore gamers. But what I can tell you is that gamers in Southeast Asia, most of them are hardcore RPG gamers. So if you have an RPG content and you want to get like lots of money rolling on in your game, Southeast Asia is the market that you might want to consider tapping in. Yep. You have anything you want to add?
I think it is important to note that the Southeast Asian market is roughly half the size of China. We all know that the China market is huge, but it is also a very, very challenging market. So if you have at your fingertip a market, a region that you could tap on with very minimum effort because of our partnership with Unity, I think it would really give you that additional chance in having some kickstart revenue. I think that's very important when it comes to indie developers.
Okay. Is there any more question on the ground? You might want to leave this there.
Thank you for the presentation. I have a question about the CRM. So basically, if there is a customer claim, so you have to respond to those kind of problems. So do you have a kind of a call center for each market, or how do you deal with those kind of problems?
Yes, I think that's very necessary. In order to run a store, you need to have all the local CRMs, the customer service, and basically the full suite.
Yep.
The benefit of what we're trying to do is we're not trying to be one Singapore company that pretends to cover the entire region, but we are partnering with a lot of the local incumbents, the local publishers, to make sure that we cover all these services and all these responses to the gamers directly.
And also, I would like to add that we actually have a small local team around Thai, Vietnam, and also Indonesia, some of the biggest markets, so that it'll be easier and faster to respond to our users.
It is very necessary in our 15 years of publishing games in Southeast Asia. It's very important for us to have all the local presence.
But in case you have to deal with the developers, in that case, how you can deal with those problems? Because you need to fix that problem. You cannot solve that with the operation tool. So in that case, how you deal with that kind of, the case?
It depends on the relationship that we have with the developers. What we're trying to provide here is a simple tool for developers to use via the Unity editor. It is like a platform, okay? So most of all these controls still remains in the hands of the developer, the indie developer himself. But when it comes to payment, these are issues that they can reach out to us from the developer. They reach out to us, and we will settle these issues with our payment partners.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
You're welcome.
Any more questions from the ground? No more?
I think before we end this presentation, I first of all want to thank all of you for being here. Think of us as a friendly Southeast Asian company that we are open to the conversations with all of you. So if you have any questions, feel free to send us an email, or just walk over to our booth and get our cards, and we'll be very, very happy to help.
Yes.
Thank you
Any
very
questions at all? And you can even send your questions in Korean, and I'll be able to respond to it. Thank you.